So today, what I want to talk to you about is how to close that 40-year gap. Sir Michael laid it out right. Everybody out there, you went to K-12, public or private or Catholic. You went to K-12, so you are an expert on K-12 education. The same with most parents. Our problem is they remember the education that they went to, not the education we need to prepare our children for. So I think what Sir Michael has set me up for there is exactly right with this presentation. So what I'm asking you to do when you go back home, I want you, with your local chambers, to use this presentation or some variation of this presentation. You're welcome to it. If you don't have a local superintendent who can help you make this presentation to your local chamber education committee, feel free to call us at the department and we'll find somebody regionally to help you. But what's going to happen this coming school year, and about this time next year, you're going to have the biggest pushback on education reform you've seen since the early 90s. Let me repeat that. This time next year, you're going to have the biggest pushback on education reform since the early 90s because it's too hard. We're expecting too much. We don't have any money. Why are we the only ones pushing? The rest of the states are waiting. We had a little bit of a pushback in January. My thanks to Dave and the chamber for stepping up to the plate. I'm going to need you to step up to the plate in the coming year. And this presentation, if it can help you, great. Don't be fooled that things are looking a little better. When we prepared this, things were looking a little better. We're looking at a $75 million surplus, plus or minus $20 million here at the end of the year. Unemployment had dropped below 10% for the first time in quite a while. Things were beginning to look up, and then the June numbers came out, and maybe things aren't looking so good. But we can't think that we're out of this recession or that things are getting better. I want you to remember the 3 E's. Education equals employment. Employment equals economy. And if we can have a good understanding in our communities about how those three interact, we're in great shape. Your own national report. Things looking pretty good. I don't see any bad numbers there. Enterprising states, cost of living is the lowest in the nation. I don't know if that's that great or not. That means you got a lot of poverty issues, but you got some pretty good numbers in that Enterprising States report from the chamber. Here's what we know from Georgetown University and from your own chamber data. I got this off your national website. Dave, a great website, by the way. Great stuff. You even got a video on there, you and Margaret Spellings. I was very impressed. 90% of the fastest growing jobs require at least 2 years post-secondary education. Now remember the 40-year gap? 40 years ago, you didn't even need a high school education to get a great paying job in the textile mills of South Carolina, the furniture industry of North Carolina, or the automotive industry in Detroit. No longer the case. 63% of jobs will require at least some college. That's the national numbers. A lot of baby boomers headed toward retirement. A lot of replacement of knowledge going to be needed out there. Here's where we are in Kentucky. We're predicting by 2018 from the Center on Education and the Workforce that about 54% of the jobs will require post-secondary training. Look at the bottom number. 11% of the jobs, the only requirement would be high school education. Do you think any of those jobs pay a high school dropout a living wage? The problem is we got 30% of our population vying for 11% of the jobs. You will see our graduation rate around 30% not graduating, competing for 11% of the jobs. Nationally, we've got a market demand that we're not meeting. Bob King, President of the Council of Post-Secondary Education, they've got a great strategic plan to close this gap in Kentucky. But nationally, we're looking over the next 10 years, we've got to get 3 million more people above and beyond what we're already getting. 300,000 a year. Our problem in Kentucky is we're only ranked 48th in the ability to produce college graduates, 2-year and 4-year. Our problem is about a third of our kids don't even finish high school. And up to half who graduate aren't ready for college or your jobs. Here's some colors. Just go by colors. You don't need to read it, but go by colors. Blue is good. Blue means that we've got about 50% or higher of our kids graduating from high school ready for college and career. Red is not too good. Light red, 16 to 30%. Deep red, less than 16% of high school graduates are ready for college and career. Now, down east, they always tell me, well, we don't want them to get too educated, they might leave us. I bet about you chamber folks have heard it, right? Folks, Tom Friedman said it right. Sir Michael said it right. Our kids down east are going to have to create the jobs of the future for themselves. And those jobs could stay down east. We don't know what those jobs look like. But having less than a high school education certainly will not be able to do it. And not being able to do critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, skills is going to be a problem. Not only eastern, but look at the central part and a little bit in the west. Here's the numbers. We had a bunch of 8th graders just left 8th grade a few weeks ago. 50,000 of them. Your future workforce in Kentucky. 50,000 of them. Guess how many of them are probably going to be college and career ready when they graduate in 2015. We're talking about a 6-year cycle from 2009 Reform Act to 2015. I got 6 years. Right now, if we don't do anything different, only 17,000 of them will be ready for college and career. About a third of them, 34%, that's the number we're talking about. What we want to do is double that number. So our vision with the Kentucky Board of Education, and one of my bosses is here, Billy Harper. Thank you for being here today. I didn't see any others. If I missed Mary Gwynn or somebody, we've got Mary Gwynn Wheeler and David Karam here in Louisville that are great state board members. But they've got a vision that every child proficient. We've been working on that for 20 years. That's what CARO is all about, every child proficient. But there's a second half to that, prepared for success. What does that mean? College ready, career ready. College ready, ready to go into a credit-bearing course at the university level, 2-year level, without having to take remedial courses. Our biggest dollar cost out there is kids graduate, valedictorians, top 10 in their class, take a placement test, they go to the university and say, sorry, you've got to take a non-credit course, and guess who's got to pay for it? Mom and dad. Or the kid has to take out a loan. Career ready. We have added that component in Kentucky and really working nationally to make sure our kids are career ready. College ready is great, but they've got to be able to have those knowledge and to be able to apply it and be a leader in the situation that Sir Michael talked about. So, here's the plan. The implementation plan, just a couple of highlights from it. This is what we've been working on with the Education Delivery Institute for about a year now to make sure we can take a strategy to implementation and get results. We got the strategy through much debate. It was called Senate Bill 1 in 2009. Those were the strategies. New standards, new assessments. Don't forget about non-tested areas. Work on professional development. To move from good to great, we got to work on professional development of our teachers. A new accountability system, and certainly a new plan to get more kids college and career ready. We have great partners. Education Professional Standards Board, Council Post-Secondary, all of our university presidents, 2-year and 4-year, are right on board with us. They adopted these standards. We're working hard to make sure K-12 is communicating with post-secondary and making sure that teacher certification, teacher prep programs are working on these standards. They're already leveled at international benchmarks. We're already thinking beyond the U.S., not just being able to compete with other states. So there are fewer of them, but here's what you need to know. We're going to have schools starting as early as August 6th, 7th, or 8th, somewhere around there. Your teachers in all grade levels will be implementing these standards, which are much more rigorous. What do you think is going to happen the first week when Johnny and Susie come home and say, Mom, you're not going to believe what they're asking us to do this year? It will happen. We'll have early rumblings in the first month of school. And where we'll have it the most is we'll be asking middle school teachers in 7th and 8th grade to teach things that they really need some high school certification to teach. And they're going to be frustrated because they don't have the math background to teach what we're now expecting in 7th and 8th grade. That's just one example. There'll be many others. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure our teachers are ready. This past year, we've been working with 1,400 educators monthly so that they could build district capacity. Did you hear that capacity word from Sir Michael? Build capacity. We've been building capacity each month for districts and teachers and principals and superintendents who are going to lead this work to do this work. Now, we're not just giving it to them and say, go to work this year. We're going to keep meeting with them. We have a Gates Foundation grant that will allow us to continue this work with our leadership networks for 3 more years. And when we get the science and social studies, we'll double our efforts with these regional networks. New assessments. This is when it'll start being a big kickback. The Senate Bill 1 legislation was very forward-thinking here. And they said not just end-of-year tests. We need better diagnostic assessments. We need student-level work. We need some combination. We need to be able to compare Kentucky children to other states and other nations. So when this will happen, toward December, January, schools, high schools that are on a semester or 4x4 or block schedule, they're going to give the first in Kentucky end-of-course assessments in Algebra 2, English 2, Biology, and U.S. History. These 2 of those, Algebra 2 and English 2, will be benchmarked against these Common Core standards, these international standards. People, that's when it's going to hit the fan because our kids have been passing Algebra 2 in Pikeville that might not be Algebra 2 in Paducah. But now Algebra 2 is going to be Algebra 2 all across the state. So where you might have had an 80-90% passing rate of Algebra 2, get ready, it might be 30-40%. I don't know. I hope it's higher than that. But that's when the first pushback will come. Then the next pushback will come at the end of the school year next year. Because if you look right now at where we are in Kentucky, 3 through 8, 70-80% of the kids are scoring proficient or better. Looking good. National normed assessments, we're at the 50th percentile or better in all grades except a couple of middle school grades. You look at any report, Kentucky has moved. We've made great progress in the last 20 years. But what's going to happen with these internationally benchmarked assessments, we're going to indicate our kids college ready or on pace to be college ready in grades 3 through 8. I would predict that the percent passing is going to be much more like the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Instead of 70 to 80% kids proficient, you're probably going to be looking at 40 to 50% kids proficient. Now, I'm asking for your help. Were we serious about ramping up and making ourselves internationally competitive? Or was it just a nice strategy that felt good when it was unanimously passed by the General Assembly? because the first person they'll call won't be me. It'll be their local senator or their local board or their local House of Representative member. And then I'll hear about it. Where are you in that mix is my question today. So, if you want all the details, which grade, which test, it's all in this presentation. The most interesting thing happening in the last couple of months is developing a new accountability system that we hope will replace No Child Left Behind. As we know, No Child Left Behind has done good work. It's helped us focus on those subgroups of kids who we quite often have ignored: special education, minority children. We've kind of hidden their numbers by the law of averages over the years. No Child Left Behind did its work. It's now time to replace No Child Left Behind with a measure that focuses on college and career readiness for all children. And the leading indicators from grades K through 12 that tell us whether or not our children are ready for college and career. Here's what it will look like. For the first year, 2011 and 12, we'll focus only on next generation learners. This is what we have ready. It's ready to go. We'll be continuing to focus on achievement. We will add a new measure, how kids are growing. We'll add a measure called GAP. It'll be a little different from the No Child Left Behind GAP measure, but we'll still focus on subgroups. Our two big measures, our real focus, is are we getting kids college and career ready at the end of their high school experience, and the cohort graduation rate, tracking kids from when they enter 9th grade to when they finish 12th grade. We will add in 12-13 a focus on the non-tested subjects. Next year's a validation study of the rubric we're going to be using, but in 12-13 we'll be adding to the accountability model a heavy focus on the non-tested subjects. To go from good to great, though, there's the last one. Here's where I need your help, too. My good friend Mary Ann Blankenship with the Kentucky Education Association is here. We have them at the table. They recognize that we have got to focus on growth of the teaching profession. We've got to focus on the professionalism there and the support of teachers. And the support of teachers in improving their teaching and learning outcomes. So we're working hard to add by 13-14 a measure of effectiveness of teachers and leaders. Right now, most states, most districts, 99% of the teachers are doing great on the evaluation system. But the results don't quite indicate that 99% of the teachers are great. What do we need to do? We've got to define effectiveness, get a measure in place, and we're going to need your help locally with that, because not every teacher group or principal group or superintendent group or school board will support a focus on that, because it means they've got to do something. They've got to get in more classrooms. They've got to provide more professional development and support for teachers. So what we did a couple of weeks ago, Governor Beshear sent a letter to that guy at the upper right-hand corner, Secretary Duncan, and said, look, Kentucky's ready. Kentucky's ready to replace No Child Left Behind with a measure that focuses on the right stuff. The president set a goal that by 2020 we would lead the world in the percentage of 2-year, 4-year technical degrees. Well, we want an accountability system that will drive toward that goal. I have a call this week with the White House that we're still working on this. Got a Chief State School Officers meeting this weekend. We're hoping, and we have our fingers crossed, and it's looking good, that Kentucky will get this type of approval. There were two choices states made. One, like we made, that 41 states are supporting this work around new accountability models. The other choice was Idaho, South Dakota, Montana, Utah said,